Welcome to our podcast, The Words That Make Us.
Consider this time with us as your excuse to take a break from everything.
Every episode, we choose a word that makes us think, wonder, or dream. We read a range of texts that explore different aspects of this word.
And we let our thoughts wander. We hope that yours will too. So grab your favourite tea.
Or a beer.
And join me, Rama
And me, Tony Bailey. Let's go!
So today's episode is about sarcasm.
Oh, goody, my favourite subject.
So, Tony, when you said that we were going to do this one on sarcasm, I went and did some research, but I kept thinking maybe he was being sarcastic when he said, let's do sarcasm. So were you serious?
Me?
No.
Me? Would I joke? Would I make light of such an important issue as the podcast, which is, after all, the most important thing in my life, as you know?
Tony, now you're talking about the podcast negatively. No.
But I'm being... How do you know? How would you know whether I'm being sarcastic or not?
I mean,
How do you know?
I know you too well. That's the problem.
That's it. But that's why sarcasm is okay.
Yeah.
Because you know me well.
Yeah.
So you're not going to take offence by anything I say because you know the spirit in which it's delivered. Unless it goes over a particular boundary.
Yeah. But now actually you brought me to something, and this might be jumping too deep right in the beginning, but I have a question that just popped into my mind when you said that.
Right.
Do you sometimes worry that because you're too sarcastic that people might not take you seriously all the time because you're joking all the time?
It keeps me awake at night, Rama. No. I mean, I could ask you the same question, right?
Yeah.
Does it worry you that sometimes you ask questions that are too personal? I don't know whether that's true or not, but I mean, it's like the same thing.
You're saying whatever is in somebody's personality should not worry you how people perceive it.
I mean, I feel like this was a very challenging, let's be without any sarcasm.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a really challenging subject to do. And partly because of my background, because I think the British are recognised as being the most sarcastic country in the world.
Probably.
In fact, in a survey of the top 10,000 people were asked, who's the most sarcastic people in the world? And they indeed said the British. It's just part of the British psyche to be very dark humour, black humour, very sarcastic, also to be self-deprecating as well.
I think that's what makes it endearing.
Yeah, and people don't hate it.
Yeah.
Most people see it as something that they love about the English is that they can laugh at themselves, but they're also very witty.
Can dish it out.
They can come up with stuff very quickly.
Yeah.
That is, you might class as sarcastic. But for me, it's just natural. So I'm not offended by sarcasm at all. When somebody's sarcastic to me, in most situations, I view that as a sign of friendship. Or, we must be on good enough terms. I mean, people in our office are being sarcastic with each other, if that's the right word. I'm not quite sure. But there is a sense of fun and...
Yeah, we poke fun all the time.
People are poking fun, but it's meant in the nicest possible way.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I read in this research, I was balking against, really? Really? I don't sort of see sarcasm through the same lens, I suppose.
Exactly, that's what I wanted to say. I think people don't agree on the definition of sarcasm, and I think that might be the problem.
Yeah.
I think sarcasm can be sometimes conflated with poking fun at people, making fun of people, ridiculing people. I think sarcasm and ridicule are not the same thing.
Yeah.
But they're kind of all put in the same boat. Also, people mix up irony and sarcasm sometimes.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's quite Yeah, I think you have to be really careful how you word it, because I think you're not sarcastic in a way that hurts people's feelings. And I think that's the most important thing.
For me, sarcasm equals humour.
Exactly.
And the main point of sarcasm is to make people smile.
Exactly.
Not to hurt.
Exactly.
I mean, I've got the Merriam-Webster definition because I thought, let's go straight to the dictionary. And I was disappointed with the definition because it didn't do for me what I think...
What you hoped it would
what
say.
I hoped it would be.
Yeah.
So sarcasm is described here as a sharp and often satirical or ironic utterance. That's okay. I like that bit of it.
Yeah.
I like to be sharp and satirical or ironic. But it says designed to cut or give pain.
Oy, oy, oy.
So if I... it's also, as an adjective, a mode of satirical wit, I like that bit, depending for its effect on bitter, caustic, and often ironic language that is usually directed against an individual. So I felt quite guilty after reading that. When people say, I was voted in my first school, 2 years running. They used to have teacher awards, and it was in the yearbook and everything with our little trophies.
Yeah.
I was the most sarcastic teacher in the school, and I honestly wore that as a badge of honour.
Yeah.
Like, this is a title I want to keep.
Yeah. No, and you will keep it. Keep you will. Yeah. No, but it's I would take that as a compliment as well, because I think sarcasm is a manifestation of wit.
Yeah.
And so,
well, when would you... So, I mean, I can't help it. It's just part of my personality. It's part of who I am. It's part of my past. I'm a bloke. Sarcasm is particularly rife amongst men.
Yeah.
As a way of sort of creating, that laddie culture. We all take the mickey out of each other. That's just... And it's very difficult to know whether... Is it ridicule? Is it making a joke? Is it sarcasm? There's very, very blurred lines for me. But I can't think of any... In school, I can't think of anywhere where I have said something sarcastically in order to cut or give pain.
I can't think of an occasion when that happened from you. No, I don't think so.
I need to try harder.
No, don't try harder. Keep it to where it is right now. No, I think that's exactly what I think. I think sometimes we call it sarcasm. Maybe you're not sarcastic. Maybe you're just very witty. Maybe we should change the word. Then if that's the definition, because I looked it up now on the Free Dictionary as well, which I like, and it says the same thing. It says mocking, contemptuous, or ironic language intended to convey scorn or insult. That's not you. That is not you. So
I think then maybe sarcasm is something of a misnomer for an awful lot of humour.
Exactly.
And when you look at definitions, I looked up that question: is sarcasm the same as irony? I mean, for you, do you feel they're the same? What's the difference?
I think irony, the way I understand it, because also there are different ways to understand it, but irony usually is when you expect something and the opposite happens. So, for example, it's really ironic that I never leave my house without an umbrella. The one day I leave my umbrella at home, it rains.
Yeah.
So that's ironic. It's a situation. So usually we describe situations as ironic. We don't say people are ironic. And also we describe people as sarcastic. We don't describe people as ironic. So
it's almost like sarcasm is personal irony. It's irony, but aimed at a person.
They call it verbal irony. Sarcasm might be called verbal irony then.
Yes.
Rather than situational irony.
Yeah.
And so, but again, I think we need to maybe we chose sarcasm. The word was wrong. Maybe we should have just said
dark humor.
Dark humor, maybe. Exactly.
I had a look. Sarcasm, in my reading, is really referring to using words or sentences that mean the opposite of what you want to say.
Yeah, exactly. That would be verbal irony, yeah.
Well, here it says, in this article, says that sarcasm, especially in order to insult somebody. So, oh, you look lovely, when actually you look a mess. Okay. Or it might just be to be funny. It might be a way of showing irritation with somebody. this group of students, they're really on top of everything when they're not, because they're disorganized. Is that sarcastic? According to this definition, that's a sarcastic thing to say.
That is sarcastic.
And it's supposed to have an impact. So it causes pain and is biting because the people who hear that
will feel insulted.
Will feel some
criticized.
Some criticism. Whereas irony, as you said, is referring to a situation or that's strange or funny because things have happened in a way that wasn't expected.
Yeah.
So you could still say they're really on top of things.
Yeah.
As an ironic statement.
Yeah, exactly.
To reflect that the statement, the situation is complete mayhem.
Exactly. So
you can, what's the difference, I suppose? The irony of somebody who says, I'm never going to have children, and then 10 years later they've got 7 kids.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think...
And then to be sarcastic with that person would be like, oh, aren't you, I don't know, true to your word or something? Or
good to see the child-free life came true.
Exactly.
That would be sarcasm. But I see...
But I think that would be just funny. I don't think that would be hurtful. I think this is where maybe sarcasm, needs to be monitored. Is that, is it worth it being funny at the expense of somebody else? I think that's where it really should stop. Yes.
No, I agree. So I like it when it's talking about synonyms for sarcasm. So I like it when you replace sarcasm with wit or repartee.
Exactly.
Or humour or banter.
Yeah.
I like the word banter.
I like the word banter. And I also, but I really think witty remarks might be really the...
But sarcasm stands alone. It doesn't have a direct synonym because it's the only word where you're using language in order to cut or give pain. So, So I know in school, it's kind of quite a drive this year is
one of the things that we were told at the very beginning of the year.
And, cut out the sarcasm to colleagues and students. And for me, that's a bit like...
Did they say colleagues as well? I thought they only said students.
So it's okay to be sarcastic.
You can be sarcastic too. Yeah,
okay,
colleagues can take it.
That's all right then. That's a bit like drinking during the break rather than during the lesson. It's like, for me, that is like being an alcoholic and being told you can't drink anymore, and in school having to hold back on the sarcastic comments. And the other thing is that the kids really notice, like, what's wrong with you, Mr. Bailey?
You're serious all of a sudden.
Why are you not being sarcastic?
As I said, but they did preface in the meeting. They did say that you are professionals. You know what's right and what's wrong.
They think I'm a professional. Clearly, haven't been in my classroom very often. That was sarcasm.
Yeah.
Or was it irony? I'm not sure. Was it wit?
Yeah, that was sarcasm. It was verbal irony. But I think verbal irony is a bit clunky.
So who was it cutting, though?
That's why I'm not calling it sarcasm. Okay. I think that's why I'm calling it verbal irony. It's just a bit funny. It's the opposite of what you actually mean.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it would be verbal irony. But we don't say that. It's a bit too much. It's a mouthful. And so we call it sarcasm. But sarcasm is actually meant to cut or hurt. And that's not who you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you think of other people in your life who've been really sarcastic where you haven't liked it?
That's a good question. I can't remember certain things, but yes, sometimes people do say funny things and they're like, oh, this is really funny, and everybody laughs, and you're like, actually, that might have been funny to you. It was really not funny to me. So it was like poking fun at my expense. So I think a very good metric would be if the person you're being sarcastic towards is laughing, genuinely laughing, not just pretending, then that's benign. Yeah. And if that person is hurt, or you might have been hurt in their shoes, then really that's not the time, or that's not the remark. So I think a bit of filter would be a good idea here. Yeah.
I mean, I've told you about my school quite a few times.
Yeah.
And I would say in that setting, then I do remember sarcasm that was meant to hurt.
Yeah.
And I would say sarcasm was then overlapping with sadism.
Yes.
Because it was the verbal equivalent of what was being meted out physically.
Oh, yeah.
So a teacher back in those days would either smack you over the head with the palm of their hand when they're walking by.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been called so many names by teachers. Bailey! I was the golden nipple of the week by
What?
my Latin teacher. And that's what he used to, Bailey, you're the golden nipple of the week. And I like that. And that was, for me, that was...
That hurt.
That was, well, it was just embarrassing, and there was no need for it. It was context. I think context, as I think, is really important. There's no context apart from just wanting to insult me.
And also, why does it
Or
always
put
have
me
to
down.
involve women body parts?
Because
Why?
it was an all-boys school, and that's what, that was...
Oh my gosh.
That's how it was. It was not... But that kind of putting people down... See, I don't think of that as part of my armoury of repartee.
Yeah.
Because I don't find it funny.
Yeah.
If I was in the classroom and I just randomly came out with, "Oh, you're a complete buffoon," that's not funny, because I haven't shown any skill or intellect in meeting that out.
Absolutely. Yeah, it has to come out of a certain situation that's happening right now.
Yeah.
And it's exact, it meets that moment and it's at the right time. If you skip a second, it's too late.
Context is absolutely key.
Yes.
And in that context, the kids actually love it. I honestly think that in my classroom, they're waiting for it and they want it. They want me to say something funny. And it could be sarcastic or it could just be funny. But they want to be entertained. So for me, teaching is an entertainment industry.
Absolutely.
And part of my armoury is, let's take, if you had to...
you make light of situations.
You have the challenge of teaching maths, right? How do you make maths light?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think you can unless you put a bit of humour into it.
Oh, look at that. Let's have another look at that lovely quadratic form. I mean, I'm all the time taking the piss, taking out of my own subject to make light of it.
Exactly.
I'm sarcastic about myself. I'm sarcastic about my subject I teach. And I'm sarcastic about my students with them in a spirit that I think that they can take.
There's something else that I feel sometimes teachers do. And sometimes this is very reminiscent of what kids do to each other, is that they'll pick on someone, make fun of that person to bond with the rest. So have you noticed that sometimes?
I've done that. I am aware of that.
Okay.
But I spoke to the person afterwards to say, I hope you don't mind that I did that, but it was a way of breaking the ice. And I know that you...
did not like it?
I know that you're strong enough to be able to take it on the chin.
Yeah.
But tell me if you don't. Right? And that person was, no, it's fine.
I think it depends on the severity or how
I think it is important to check.
Yes.
And I also think there are certain people I would never use. I would never use sarcasm with certain people because I know they either are German.
They're fragile.
Or they that they are...
that was meant sarcastically, everyone.
Germans take everything so literally.
They do.
So I have felt like my sarcasm filter has changed somewhat.
Yeah.
The volume of sarcasm is a lot lower than it used to be because it's wasted.
Yeah.
It is completely wasted here.
What a waste of a good joke.
Yeah. Yeah. But, there are some cultures where sarcasm is not welcome, or it's not normal, and I veer away from that. Imagine that if you wanted to be humorous with somebody, but the rules were you couldn't use any irony or sarcasm. How would you know? How could you be funny? What would you joke about?
You would tell jokes out of context. You would
so
go
be like, "Oh, Rama, hi! I got a joke about."
Exactly. I think that's what a lot of people do. It's out of context.
But then that's not intimate humour for me. If I make a joke to you that's sarcastic and you know that I'm joking, isn't that a lot more intimate than just saying something funny? It's
intimate and it's also wittier. It's clever. It's impressive. It's something that I'm like, oh, that was good. That was good. That was the right time, the right place, and the right context. But also, I do know some people and colleagues who come in and they say, oh my God, I heard the funniest joke yesterday. And they're good at telling jokes, Yes. And so that's another kind of humour. That doesn't involve sarcasm.
But that humour is somewhat impersonal because anybody could be hearing that and like it.
Yeah.
But sarcasm is almost tailored tailoring your humour.
Yeah.
There are certain students who are brilliant at receiving sarcasm and brilliant at giving it back, and others that we just don't, I wouldn't do that because they're not.
And also not only is it intimate, but also you actually just made me think of something. When that humour is tailored to what I just said or did in that moment, it also shows that you're paying attention.
Yeah.
Shows that you're listening, you're paying attention, you're really in the moment, and then you thought of the perfect thing to say and do in that moment. And so it's really flattering in a way when you're sarcastic with people. It shows that you trust them, they trust you, you have a good relationship with them, and you're really showing attention.
Which leads us to the science.
Yes.
Which is that, of course, sarcastic people are more intelligent and more successful than everybody else.
And modest.
And modest.
Let me just add that.
Yes. Sarcastic people, apparently, a little bit of... By the way, the science here is really not that scientific.
I was going to say, this is something where you can't really gauge things so much. It's really difficult to quantify sarcasm. But we're going by some kind of guesswork,
there are some
consensus.
Schools.
Yeah.
So research, the quote, sarcasm is the... is the lowest form of wit, but
the highest form of intelligence.
Yes. A lot of people leave out the second half of that sentence.
Yeah. They just say it's the lowest form of wit and stop it right now.
But it's the highest form. So, research has backed that up and said that sarcasm does show a higher form of intelligence, and it also claims that it can help you to get ahead at work. So why is that? So a study titled Highest Form of Intelligence, Sarcasm Increases Creativity Through Abstract Thinking for Both Expressors and Recipients was carried out by a team of researchers at Harvard, Columbia, and INSEAD. So this is like heavy duty.
Reputable universities.
Yes. And they tested the effects of sarcasm on a whole series of volunteers who were engaged either in a sincere or a neutral or a sarcastic exchange before they were then asked to complete a task designed to assess their creativity. And what did the research find? Sarcasm gives you the mental workout that then enables you to be more creative.
It kind of primes you.
Yeah. So, and it's a two-way thing. This is really interesting about it. So, whereas I tell a joke, it's all on me, and the person either laughs or doesn't. To create or receive sarcasm, both the expressor and the recipient of sarcasm need to overcome and understand the contradiction.
Yes.
Right? Between the literal and the actual meanings of what's being said.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yes.
And the relationship is not a good one if the two are on a different plane.
They don't match, yeah.
And this is why I said, actually, often a lot of my sarcasm is lost on Germans. Because the German people, they take everything literally. So they are not on the same level. They don't understand that what I'm saying is not in that context. It's a different level. And also, I find that it doesn't work with Germans because I can't be sarcastic in their language.
That's the other thing. I think that's very important, is that you can't translate humour. You can't, it has to be in the language you're most comfortable in.
Yeah. But that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because they're just words, right?
Yeah.
But there's such nuance.
Delivery is different, tone is different, and also the speed. Like, how can you translate your thought that you're thinking in your mother tongue very quickly, deliver it at the right time in a different language?
Let's do a little experiment then, see how good your English sarcasm is. So, as you possibly noticed and haven't commented on, I had a lovely haircut of the weekend.
I did comment on it.
Actually, you did make a sarcastic comment about the accident that I'd had.
Of course.
Yes. And then I was self-deprecating back by saying I had a freak gardening accident. So But okay, so you can comment on you need to say the same thing, like, that's a really nice haircut.
I came in and I said...
Okay, so that's the sentence.
Yeah.
But I want you to say it 3 ways.
Okay.
Right? I want you to say it sincerely. I want you to say it neutrally.
Okay.
And I want you to say it sarcastically.
Okay.
And it's really interesting because I think, I think you can do this. I'm sure you can.
Yeah, of course I can. But it's so I can say, "Oh, what a lovely haircut! That really suits you."
Which one was that? Is that sarcasm?
No.
I think, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure whether you're being sarcastic or not, because both the expressor and the recipient of the sarcasm have got to be on the same wavelength for it to work.
Yeah.
So, okay, can you do a sarcastic version then?
Ooh, what a great haircut, Mr. Bailey.
That's how you sound most of the time when you're talking to me.
Because I'm making fun of you most of the time. In case
I
you haven't noticed.
I know, it's gradually sinking in. Now, I don't think could you tell me, do the same thing in German? Could you do that in German?
I mean, I don't know. I would make a mistake. I would be like, was für ein Schnitt, Herr Bailey. I don't know. It would be, I don't know. I think I could do it because my German is okay.
Yeah. I think the sarcasm is far more obvious.
Yeah.
Because Germans speaking I don't think they nuance their language as much.
No.
And so if they're being sarcastic, you do have that tone.
Yeah.
And you can hear it.
Yeah. And then they'll be like, what are you?
The sarcasm is not effective.
Yeah.
Because it's so obvious.
Yeah.
That it's out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I think sarcasm, to be really good sarcasm,
It has to be subtle.
There has to be an element of doubt.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Rather like that first time, I'm still laughing at it because I'm still not sure whether you were being sarcastic or not.
I mean, when I came into the staff room the other day and I looked at your haircut, I was like...
And laughed.
Nice haircut, Mr. Bailey.
That was
sarcasm. Yes. And then you were like, oh, I had that freak guard day accident.
Actually, it wasn't.
I fell on the lawnmower.
Yeah. Yeah. So that kind of backs up, I think, what this research is saying.
But, that's really funny because, like, my little one, whenever I say to him, that was great, and he looks at me and he really, like, takes a few seconds like, did you mean that right now? Because you're always making fun of me.
Yeah. No, I think I do. I must limit the amount of sarcasm I use with my daughter because I could program her into believing that I'm never being serious.
That's what I meant. Like, do people sometimes not take you seriously? But I think you do vary your tone when you, as a teacher, you do. I think with your daughter, you're always, silly. Yes. Because she's little and she needs that playfulness. But yeah, as you said, I think
it's not so much sarcasm, I think, with the child. It's more witty, repartee, or nonsense.
Yeah, exactly.
Kids like nonsense.
The silly, like I said, exactly.
But there's a thin line between nonsense and sarcasm, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I say things in a sarcastic way, which are clearly nonsense, but they sound funny if you say them. But anyway, back to this research.
Yes.
Those in the sarcasm conditions then went on to do creative tasks and perform better on creativity tasks than those who had the sincere or control conditions, suggesting that sarcasm has the potential to catalyse creativity in everyone. Yeah, so really interesting. While most previous research seems to suggest that sarcasm is detrimental to effective communication, because it's perceived to be more contemptuous than sincerity, Harvard University found that unlike sarcasm between parties who distrust each other, which is where it gets hurtful and insulting, because you're using it to hurt, right? Sarcasm between individuals who share a trusting relationship does not generate more contempt than sincerity.
Yes, exactly.
So I think that context idea is really important here. And I think, if you don't like somebody already, then when you're sarcastic to them, your sarcasm will reflect the fact that you don't like them.
Exactly, and that would be biting sarcasm. I think it's really important to establish a rapport with someone first before, test the waters a little bit. See, can I be sarcastic with this person? Can they take it? Are they too sensitive as well? There are some people who are so fragile that you really should be careful. I mean, you said it yourself. Some students in your class you would not be sarcastic with. Yeah. A, because they may not get it, and B, because this might really hurt them.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think, let me tell you something that I hate about some sarcastic people, or funny in general, or who think they are funny. If they are sometimes like deep in their thoughts and they say something they think is funny, and then you're like, and they're like, oh, that was wasted on you, I find that very condescending. Yeah. I think because like sometimes maybe you're not very funny, and I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about other people. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to be really careful, like how
Yeah.
You might hurt somebody's feelings by the joke or by being offended they didn't get your joke. It's like, yeah.
I mean, there's a time and a place.
Yeah.
There's a,
And rapport.
When we're in the office and people are working away, sometimes there's clearly a time when it is not appropriate to be witty, bantering, or being sarcastic. But other times it is, and I get that. Sometimes unbelievably, where I'm actually working and deep in thought, and stuff comes left field, and it's like I'm not there to receive this yet.
Exactly.
But again, that's kind of as per that research.
Yeah.
Both parties have got to be tuned in, ready for it,
exactly,
so they can process it together. It's a kind of a collaborative piece of communication, not one way.
Yeah.
So that's why when we're told don't do sarcasm, it's like, but I can't stop myself if everybody else wants it. It's like you can't kiss on your own.
Yeah, exactly.
So I find that quite insightful. There's another thing as well in the science about sarcasm. So this is a study published in the journal Neuroimage, and that reveals recognizing sarcasm. So the fact that you can spot my sarcasm is a sign that you have a healthy brain, and that sarcasm is a versatile communication tool, crucial to social interaction. But, as we just said, the interpretation of sarcasm relies hugely on context.
Yes.
And the reason why sarcasm has a bad reputation is for those occasions where there is a misunderstanding of the communication.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is only the same, isn't it? As, if you put sarcasm to one side, but if you think when somebody's flirting, when both people are doing it, then it is a hugely, hugely exciting and collaborative, rewarding interchange. And when you know both are tuned in, and that is the patter, and there's little bits of sauciness in the line.
Like this tension,
sarcasm for me is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Sarcasm it has to be received in order to be understood.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, I could sit there making sarcastic comments that nobody hears. Or no, I mean, I'm just humouring myself.
Yeah, exactly. You can do it in your brain and be laughing away all day long.
But
you could. But is it fun for you? I don't think so.
No, but I think it's funny when other people laugh
and appreciate it, and then they might also give you one in return, and then you can give one in return, and then it's really funny.
So, 3 reasons why sarcasm is romantically attractive. So, because in the past, people have been cautioned about don't use sarcasm in relationships because it's often passive aggressive. But again, research shows that that's not actually the case.
No, sometimes it is passive aggressive.
Sometimes it is.
Yes, exactly.
But not always. It's not like don't do it because it's passive aggressive.
Exactly. It's not like don't do it because it's always passive aggressive. Don't do it when it is passive aggressive. Yeah.
So 3 reasons according to research. 1, sarcasm is a sign of creativity and intelligence, backed up by that Harvard study. So if you're looking for a partner who is creative and intelligent, if their humour is deep, dark, sarcastic, and there's a sign that they're creative and intelligent.
Absolutely. And
whereas somebody who's my favourite comedy is Mr. Bean. Then, I love clowns.
Yeah, exactly.
I love clowns.
Yeah.
Then maybe you're going to be questioning whether they're the right person.
No, I think that's definitely something that I would do when I first meet people is do they get humour? And if they don't, then that really better move on because it's not going to work.
Yeah. This study says that people who use sarcasm effectively have empathy and are mindful of others' thoughts and feelings. So evidence suggests that where people who are mindful of others' thoughts and feelings use sarcasm in a highly strategic and less aggressive way, especially in delicate situations, then this shows a significant level of emotional intelligence.
But isn't that what I said about people being paying attention, being in
absolutely.
tune with what you're feeling or saying?
But this is where, a guy says we mustn't know sarcasm. Well, actually, for me, I believe this, that if you use sarcasm in the right way, it can
Nurture relationships and
it
connection.
can help you handle more delicate situations or
Yeah.
give more delicate messages in a much better way.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think the example we were told in a meeting was, if somebody comes in late,
Isn't it nice of you to join us?
then don't say anything, just let them sit down and join the lesson. Well, I don't do that.
You can't do it.
I can't do that because they've been late for my lesson.
Yeah.
And I feel that something has to be said. And I could, I suppose, have a quiet word at the end of the lesson and say, please don't be late for my lesson again. And I probably would still do that. But I also think it is good because the message needs to be transmitted to everybody in the room that lateness is not tolerated. Now, I could stand and rant and rave and say, how
This
dare
is
you be...
disrespectful. How could
I'm
you do
really
that?
annoyed that you're late for my lesson.
Yeah.
I think it's a disgrace and
Yeah.
nobody else should be late. Blah, blah, blah.
But if you use humor, you're kind of diffusing the situation.
Yeah, somebody came in late to my lesson and says, oh, fantastic to see you. How nice of you to join us this
Your
morning."
Majesty.
Yeah, exactly. Would you like a coffee? and they sat down and they liked it.
Yeah.
And everybody else laughed and it was funny. And then we moved on and carried on. I just carried on. And the point was made. The point was made in a way that nobody was really hurt. But everybody understood that I had taken note of the fact that he was late. And I had made some comments about it. But it wasn't a big deal.
No. Can I tell you something, though? I think it's okay to make fun of somebody being late. I think the closer this thing you're making fun of is to somebody's identity,
Yes.
the more it hurts.
Yes.
So this is something that, okay, it doesn't define me. I don't care. I'm late, I'm early, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you are like making fun of somebody's appearance, especially teenagers.
Like
you
having
know?
a haircut that's like that kind of thing.
Ooh, ouch. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I am very sorry.
Go on, carry
But
on.
see, again, a relationship means that you can take it.
Of
I can
course.
dish it out.
Of course.
Yeah, but I think if it's like we're talking about teenagers who have a very vulnerable sense of self, and you go and say something about, ooh, somebody's been packing in the donuts or something.
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
my God, like say that to a girl
Yeah.
and expect an eating disorder. You know,
Yeah.
so I think the closer something is to somebody's identity or things they cannot change about themselves.
I think that's a really good guideline.
I think
it's like, what is the subject of your sarcasm?
Exactly. Is it part
I would
of me that
never
I
be
can't
sarcastic about,
Somebody's
appearance or things that they felt
or
sensitive
origin
about.
or
or sensitive relationship matters or whatever like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
In the same way as I just wouldn't make jokes about that anyway.
Yeah,
you
I know.
So, yeah. So I think that this article is right, is that where somebody is thinking and has that kind of emotional radar as to what the right time and place is.
I think that's the key. How
Then I think it's
emotionally
fine.
intelligent are you?
Yes.
If you're emotionally intelligent, then this sarcasm or this verbal irony can really elevate the relationship to the next level. And
Yeah.
if you are unaware and you're self-absorbed, then this really can make you very unlikable.
Yeah, absolutely. 2015 study.
Yeah.
Published in the Journal of Organisational Behaviour and Human Decision Processes, one of my favourite journals, found that when people use sarcasm with individuals they trust,
Yeah.
it enhances creativity within both the expressor and the recipient. In other words, when two people feel intellectually and emotionally secure within a trusted bond, sarcasm will give rise to creativity instead of conflict. So you just got to have the right radar
Absolutely.
to know that.
And I think also it can really make light, as you said, of situations that could be sad. It's good also, but you should also be careful not to go to the other side and make light of somebody's real problems.
Yeah.
So it's a very fine line, and with age and emotional intelligence, you can really play it very right.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of people of my age get a reputation for not using sarcasm very well. Do you think? I think that sort of... I see myself as that sort of grumpy old bloke in the corner. And I think we do have, I think there is a reputation that actually often the sarcasm is not good.
I don't know.
Do you think you become more sort of biting and bitter and twisted as you get older?
I don't think it's your age, though. I think, like, we're talking 10 years maybe from now, you might turn into that if you don't stop yourself. But
I'm on this slippery slope.
you are a slippery slope. But
Yeah.
I think so far, and I'm not giving you any compliments, you are very emotionally intelligent with your jokes. So that's...
Hopefully.
Yeah, no, you are.
Yes.
So stay like that, Mr. Bailey, please. Yeah.
You know that sarcasm-fueled resilience can be incredibly seductive.
Yes, I saw that in the 2 articles as well. Look at us finding
yeah.
the same articles.
See.
Yes, it makes you resilient, that's true. Because then I think Georgie in the future will, no matter what anybody says or throws her way, she'll be like, yeah, I'm prepared for it.
Yeah.
My father prepared
And it's
me.
attractive and appealing to those who value confidence in a partner or friend because they're sharing that sort of humour with them.
Yeah.
And you can find a sardonic soulmate.
Absolutely.
So 2 people who enjoy the same sort of sarcastic sense of humour will be attracted to each other because it will bring them closer. So hasn't given me any luck on Tinder though. Bitter, twisted, English sarcastic man.
Yeah, sardonic man.
Seeks
Yeah.
same. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, also it might bring people together, like a couple together, if they're both sarcastic and they view things the same way. And
Yeah.
let's not make fun of other people, though.
Yeah. Or
Or keep it to a minimum. But
Yeah.
this could actually bring a couple closer. Yeah, that's for sure.
Did you find any literature? Because I found that quite a challenge because, of course, sarcasm, as we said, is all in the context. And it's also in the way things are verbalized, spoken. So does sarcasm effectively exist in the printed word?
So actually, this is a very interesting thing because I was going to tell you about it. There was a study where this is no surprise, is that they studied people who sent sarcastic texts in a voice note to people, like voice notes to people, or sarcastic texts to people. And with the text, it was only about 50%, 56% or something that people actually understood that this was meant sarcastically and not seriously. Whereas with the voice note and even better face-to-face, it's easier to recognize and not take offense. And so I think in writing, it is incredibly difficult. And people who can achieve that kind of humor that doesn't bite or hurt in writing, that might be a really amazing skill. But what I found when I was researching was things that were not strictly sarcasm, but more irony or satire. Yeah. Because I think sarcasm is very difficult because because we didn't really agree on a definition. Yeah. I think that was the problem.
So I have a quote that backs it up. Yeah. Sarcasm doesn't read sarcastic in print.
Yes.
Kristen Schaal.
Exactly.
And I think that's true. That thing you said about messages. I've given up trying to be sarcastic in written form because people don't.
Yeah, it's hard. Because actually when I text with you, you are very, very serious in text. Yeah. And I have to remind myself, nope, Tony, I have to imagine his face when he's saying something because he would be very funny. But in text, you're very serious. And I think it might be because you don't use emojis very much. That's where you're an old bloke.
So if I use emojis, I'd be being more sarcastic?
No, because it would be clear that you are being sarcastic.
That's really interesting.
I think emojis were, created for a reason.
So you could show people that you weren't being serious about something.
Exactly. Whereas if it's just plain text, then it's really hard.
Yeah. Now that's because this is a very much driven by Americans, you see. So I was reading a nice article that was talking about cultural differences in the use of sarcasm. And of course, in all of the Anglophile, English-spoken world, there is an element of sarcasm spoken. But the level of it is on a scale
of course,
where the United Kingdom, Great Britain, is far to the extreme. So in the UK, I might see you in the office and I might say, wow, did you get dressed in the dark this morning?
I've heard that before.
Right? Did you get dressed in the dark this morning? And I would look at you with no kind of expression.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe one slight raised eyebrow. Right? That would be it.
Yeah.
An American would say, wow, did you get dressed in the dark this morning?
And wink.
2 seconds later, just kidding.
Yeah.
Your clothes are fine. You look really great. A gentle punch to the shoulder. I was just having a joke with you. It was a joke.
Yeah.
Because I think Americans don't feel so secure with sarcasm, or maybe they don't feel so secure in the relationship.
And also they're too nice.
They have to signal the fact
Yeah.
that it was just a joke.
Yeah.
Whereas a Brit you'd never do that. It spoils the sarcasm.
Yes.
You've got to leave somebody guessing. Was that serious what he said or not? And then maybe later.
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't being serious.
I was joking.
So emojis I see as the American way of signifying
Yeah.
when you get to this end of the sentence, it wasn't serious.
Yeah, I mean, that's me, because I might be a bit paranoid about being misunderstood or hurting somebody's feelings. I mean, so I'm always kind of like, this is a joke. I have to make it very clear it's a joke. And with the students, it's exactly the same. Actually, you reminded me of someone, our friend that now moved to your city, if he's listening, he will know himself.
Hi.
Once I looked at my earrings and he was like, great earrings. I was like, oh, thank you. Did you make them at home? And I'm like, oh, what's wrong? And I never wore them since.
You see, that was cutting.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's cutting sarcasm.
And see, that's his sarcasm is slightly different from mine.
Yeah.
Because it's Irish.
Yeah, that's true.
So obviously mine's more intelligent. That was sarcasm, sorry. No, stop it. No, so that's really interesting. But anyway, where were we back to? About finding some writing that...
Exactly. I was going to read to you something else that I had found, but since you said Irish,
okay,
then I'm going to read to you what Jonthan Swift, who was an Irish writer, what he wrote. And
he was one of my set writers when I studied A-level. And as soon as we picked the topic sarcasm, I thought,
he came to mind.
I've got to go and look at Jonthan Swift, because for his age,
yeah.
Not as in how old he was, but when he was around, he was incredibly, sarcastic, ironic, amazing.
I mean,
so what did you find?
This might be a bit cutting, actually. This one might be completely sarcastic, because this was cutting, it was bitter, and it really, this wasn't addressed to me, and I was like, ouch, 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 ouch.
Yeah.
So this was in his essay called A Modest Proposal for Preventing the Children of Poor People from Being a Burden to their Parents or the Country, and for making them beneficial to the public.
I remember studying this as a teenager.
Yeah.
And being British, I did have some understanding of sarcasm, and I was, already sort of trying it out.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh my God, is this real?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is
this
real.
Is brilliant.
And this was, it was satiric, and it was just sarcastic, and it was making fun not of the Irish, but rather of the English.
Of course.
Who were taking advantage of the Irish.
Very anti-English establishment. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, I mean, I apologize if somebody might find this people might find this offensive. So some of the
Remember,
quotes,
it's sarcastic stroke satirical. That's the thing.
Exactly. So it's fine. And so I'm going to read to you some bits that I found actually most interesting from this. So he says, a child will make 2 dishes at an entertainment for friends, and when the family dines alone, the fore or hind quarter will make a reasonable dish, and seasoned with a little pepper or salt will be very good boiled on the 4th day, especially in winter.
Especially in winter.
So this is interesting, because it's not like the child is making the dish. He would make a good dish in terms of
we're going to eat
let's
him.
Eat the child.
Yes.
So what he's saying is
food.
Let's eat these children so they're not a burden to the public. Well,
I can see the sense in that.
Totally, especially these chubby little children, they'd be delicious.
Yeah.
Another part of it is it would increase the care and tenderness of mothers toward their children.
Of course.
When they were sure of a settlement for life to the poor babes, provided in some sort by the public to their annual profit instead of expense. We should see an honest emulation among the married women, which of them could bring the fattest child to the market.
Absolutely.
And then another part is I think it is agreed by all parties that this prodigious number of children in the arms or on the backs or at the heels of their mothers and frequently of their fathers is in the present deplorable state of the kingdom a very great additional grievance.
Yes,
Whoa.
it is.
And then the last bit I'm going to read to you is... Oh, I forgot. I missed that one. I was going to give you one about... I heard from an American trader that these little children make the best soup and stuff. And I'm like, I could not believe this. I couldn't believe it when I was reading it.
Yes.
So I think this is definitely...
the amazing thing here is this. We're talking about the early 1700s here.
Yeah.
And so already in the language and the writing, that satire, that lampooning people in authority was definitely key and key to the humour of the time.
Yeah.
You don't find that much writing from 1800s that is just openly funny, ha.
Yeah.
A comic novel.
Yeah.
The comedy. I mean, I love Charles Dickens is one of my favourite because his writing and his descriptions are so sarcastic, so
over
satirical,
the top.
So biting in their lampooning of people's characteristics or whatever. So it's really important to certainly the British cultural heritage, this kind of writing.
And what I find really interesting is that Jonathan Swift was actually a man of religion. He was So that's the other thing. You would expect, I don't know, vicars and priests to be really serious, or they only talk of the Bible. But then you told me that the Bible was also full of sarcasm.
I was quite surprised because you would think that the Bible would say it's one of the most serious sins is to be sarcastic, but not so. There's quite a lot of famous examples of sarcasm in the Bible. Probably the most famous one is the Cain and Abel story. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel, your brother?" He said, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" I mean, being sarcastic to God.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Is like the ultimate sin. Cain was jealous of Abel and killed him. It's the first murder in human history. Great start. So you are sarcastic to God, who can see everything and knows everything. So straight away we start in Genesis with sarcasm. Lots of points where people are mocked even by Jesus.
Yeah.
And the famous image of Jesus coming into Jerusalem before he's crucified. "Hail, oh hail, the King of the Jews," is what the crowd are sarcastically
making fun of him.
So I was quite surprised just how many places in the Bible that there's sarcasm. Like a madman who throws firebrands, arrows, and death is the man who deceives his neighbour and then says, "I'm only joking." It's in Proverbs. So already, the sarcastic man is yes. At noon, Elijah mocked them, saying, "Cry aloud, for he is a god. Either he is musing, or he's relieving himself, or he's on a journey, or perhaps he's asleep and must be awakened."
Oh my goodness.
Now this is Elijah mocking those people who were worshipping false gods. And he set them a task and said, "Okay, summon the gods so that I can see them when I come tomorrow." And he turned up, and these people said, "Oh, the god's not here yet."
Yeah.
And he's basically saying, "Oh, give him another shout. Probably he's having a little think, or he's on the toilet, or he's still travelling here, or maybe he's still asleep." I mean, that's just blatant sarcasm, isn't it?
That's really cool. That is so cool.
So the Bible, yes. I'll tell you who else is really good with sarcasm.
Who?
Our friend Shakespeare.
Yeah, of course.
Shakespeare's humour is so full of irony, sarcasm, black humour.
Absolutely.
I just picked out some of his funniest put-downs that you might view as being... And I thought, maybe I should use these in my classroom. So Rama more of your conversation would infect my brain.
Gosh.
It's
Thank
great.
you, Tony. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll beat thee, but I will infect my hands.
Oh.
Yeah. There's no more faith in thee than in a stewed prune.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Your face is not worth sunburning. Now that's quite caustic, isn't it? This woman's an easy glove, my lord. She goes off and on at pleasure. I mean, that's pretty... Yeah. Thou art as fat as butter.
Wow.
That's grim.
Wow.
Describing somebody as a damned and luxurious mountain goat. You are as a candle, the better burnt out. Yeah. Villain, I have done thy mother.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yes. Thou sodden-witted lord, thou hast no more brain than I have in mine elbows. Would thou wert clean enough to spit upon?
Wow.
That's harsh.
Wow.
And then, I am sick when I do look at you, or when I do look on thee. And then the last one that I really am going to use, the Merry Wives of Windsor, he described somebody, he said, you Banbury cheese.
Oh.
What a great insult. So I think I'm going to use that. If I call somebody a Banbury cheese, will
Yeah.
they have any knowledge of what I'm talking about?
They will have no idea.
But yeah, really good. So he is very
I mean, he's a
sarcastic.
master in sarcasm. I
Yeah.
think I looked at like Islam, and I don't know maybe if there were any like examples of sarcasm, but what I found was cautioning against sarcasm.
Yes.
So in Surah Al-Hujurat, it says, "O you who have believed, let not a people ridicule another people. Perhaps they may be better than them. Nor let women ridicule other women. Perhaps they may be better than them. And do not insult one another, and do not call each other by offensive nicknames. Wretched is the name of disobedience after one's faith, and whoever does not repent, then it is those who are the wrongdoers."
Yes.
So no ridicule, no making fun of people.
Yeah.
And then there's something by Muhammad, the Prophet. I'm not sure. Like what is in the Quran is agreed upon that it was in the Quran, but like what is attributed to the Prophet.
Yeah.
So anyway, there is this one that where he says, "The Muslim is the one from whose tongue and hand the people are safe."
Yes.
So that's also interesting. So I think he was a very serious man. He also said, "Whoever believes in Allah and the last day should speak good or remain silent." So this is
Yes.
something where he would be like, yeah, sarcasm, there's
think
no
this-
place for sarcasm in the classroom or anywhere.
Yes. And I would say, really? I think I like that. The Muslim is the one from whose tongue and hand the people are safe.
Yeah,
If you're looking at, like I described the context of when I was at school,
yeah,
I didn't feel safe
yeah,
from my teachers, both in terms of what they would do physically or verbally.
yeah,
And I like that. The Muslim is the one who's, you're safe of that.
Yeah.
I wanted to feel safe from it.
Yeah.
I felt intimidated, both physically, I could get hurt. I could get hit
Yeah.
without deserving it.
Yeah.
But I could also be absolutely vilified with some sort of caustic statement.
It's really not okay.
But what if I was to challenge this a little bit and
Mm-hmm.
say, you are in safe hands if the person who's being sarcastic with you is doing it out of their love for you. Love in the wider sense.
Yeah.
Because, as we discussed before, you only... That sarcasm is a two-way street, and it's a way of connecting with somebody at a level where you're both appreciating the ridiculousness of what you're saying.
Exactly.
And if anything, it's a sign of your respect or your... care for somebody because you're happy to share that with them.
Yeah.
It's like you're letting each other in to a secret space where you're sharing this humour.
That's true.
And I don't see that as unsafe.
No.
I think it's only unsafe when, as we've discussed, the use of it is for
To hurt.
hurt.
Yeah, I think this one is like it's clear that it's something where ridicule rather than sarcasm. And no, actually sarcasm is to ridicule and cut. And that's what we agreed upon at the very beginning, is that we might sometimes call it sarcasm, but what we exercise, I can be sarcastic too, but I try not to hurt anyone with it. I try to always make it's just good fun. It's just, but never to hurt.
I think if I was to think about, times of conflict, so having an argument with somebody, that I'd probably have used sarcasm in that context in exactly the wrong way.
Exactly.
Because in the same way as you want to use sarcasm to make somebody laugh,
you can also make them
feel good. You can also use it to make something more hurtful than it would be. You can exacerbate or amplify the hurt through what you say as a sarcastic thing. And in an argument or conflict, you wouldn't then punch them on the shoulder and say, "Oh, I was only joking," because you're not only joking.
No,
you're being hurtful,
and
and that nasty sarcasm is bad.
I think this is where you should really steer clear from it.
It's bad.
But
then I think all kind of conflict's bad. So sarcasm is just one way in which we lash out at people. We lash out through words and deeds, and so sarcasm is one way in which we know we can get under somebody's skin.
And I think that's why in conflict what we need is sincerity. I think in conflict you need to be sincere, and you need to be vulnerable. And I was going to say this before, but I think sometimes people use sarcasm as a way of masking who they are and kind of hiding pain. They use it as a shield, kind of, so you don't get near them so much, and also to project this very funny person, so people don't get too close to you. You don't let them in so deep.
That's really interesting.
It is very, very important that you don't use it as a shield or as something to prevent yourself from becoming vulnerable.
So, what we said, so sarcasm is effective when two parties come together. They find that common space. They want to commune in the humour. And they find a way. So clearly, if you're in conflict with somebody, sarcasm is never going to work.
Exactly. It's only going to make it worse.
Because you're not in that space where you want to be communing in humour or in that. So anything you say is actually there to further create a greater rift or create more hurt than was there before.
So it's either to hurt or to deflect. You know, so also this deflection where it's kind of like, I have this wall, and my sarcasm and jokes will just send the thing back at you. Whatever you say, I'm going to make fun of it, and so it comes back to you, and I'm never going to discuss it really with you or break it down or talk about it. And you know what this reminds me of a little bit? Chandler from Friends.
Yes.
He's the kind of, because you have two funny people in there. I think Ross is funny and Chandler is funny. Ross is the one who kind of like is the sensitive funny. He's like, oh, and then he will talk about it. He'll make fun of things. But Chandler is the one who deflects. And it's really interesting how it kind of connected to his real life. It's like where he had a lot of issues and never really handled them. And it led to his end maybe.
I mean, some of the research, I focused on the stuff that was positive about sarcasm.
Yeah, of course, because this is confirmation bias, Mr. Bailey.
Of course. But there were equally those articles which talked about those people who use sarcasm. They do so because they find it difficult to be in touch with their own feelings. And because they're masking, like you said, they're masking their true feelings. They can hide behind that wall of black humour and whatever. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? I looked at an article about the most sarcastic TV characters, and sure enough, Chandler Bing was number 3.
Definitely, yeah.
Any idea of who else was on that list? Who are your sarcasm icons?
So for me, the sarcasm icons are definitely Chandler. He's definitely my favorite of all. I really like Dr. House.
He's number 1 on the list.
I can imagine.
He's number 1 on the list.
He is my favorite.
The king of sarcasm, he's described.
Self-deprecating and also really funny. But I think if I worked with him, I would hate his guts.
Yes.
I cannot take that kind of sarcasm. Like, Chandler's sarcasm is self-deprecating. House's sarcasm is deflecting and kind of like not for him to mask his addiction.
Yes.
He's hurting other people's feelings.
Yes.
And also because he's very witty, he cannot resist the urge to be funny at other people's expense.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I cannot take that. So it's funny to look, haha, but it's not funny to be in that situation at all.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So who was number 2? Was it Seinfeld?
Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld, number 2.
Can I say that I never liked Seinfeld? I watched only a few episodes and I was like, nah, not really my thing.
Not my thing. I like House. I like Chandler.
Yeah.
Number 4, Felicity Smoke from Arrow. I don't know that program.
Know what that is.
5, Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory. I love him, Sheldon. I mean, for him, now he's a good example of somebody who really insecure, and sarcasm is used as a mask or as part of a mechanism for coping in situations.
I mean, to me, the sarcastic one in that show is actually Wolowitz. What was his name?
Yeah,
that's the one who's the sarcastic
the more
one.
biting one.
He makes fun of himself and of others.
Yeah.
I think he's the funny one. I think Sheldon is not really as sarcastic. Sheldon is just stupid because he has no social awareness and he just makes a fool of himself all the time.
Well, he's kind of a bit of a dilemma, isn't he? Because he claims not to understand humour or sarcasm.
Exactly.
And then he's really sarcastic himself.
Is he?
He's quite. Some of the things he says are quite personal and quite critical, and could be maybe they're not sarcastic.
Exactly, I think he means them. I really think he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Perry Cox, Scrubs. Did you watch that?
He's 6. I love. Yeah. Oh my God, Perry is one of. Actually, I should have mentioned him. I just adore that man. Yeah. I watch this show and go
Did
like,
anybody say doctor in here?
God.
Is that his catchphrase? Charlie Harper, 2.5 Men.
Okay, I don't know that one.
Charlie Sheen. Liz Lemon, 30 Rock.
No, she's awesome. Have you seen 30 Rock?
No, I've never watched it.
Oh my God. Oh, it's really good.
Yeah?
I want to go to there. She always says that. She's really good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Ron Swanson, Park and Recreation is 9. And then Will, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is number 10.
He's good.
So, yeah. And what that shows is that they are much loved TV characters who are sarcastic.
Yeah.
So if sarcasm was such a bad thing, we wouldn't have TV characters who are sarcastic. They're funny.
Definitely funny. But also, like, they represent parts of us that we sometimes either can't achieve or don't want to be.
Yeah.
Like that wit all the time is difficult.
Yeah.
And also it's difficult to strike that balance.
Yeah.
And to make it super funny all the time. But also, I don't want to be Chandler, and I don't want to be Dr. House, and I don't want to be, all of these people who are making actually fools of themselves or hurting other people.
Yeah.
So it's a bit much exaggerated.
Do you think other cultures interpret sarcasm in the same way as we do?
No, everybody interprets it differently. And also,
or are there particular cultures where, you kind of intimated that Asia, that you wouldn't use sarcasm in certain countries? I mean, is sarcasm a no-go?
I mean, apparently it was banned by law in 2016 in North Korea. It's banned. Wow. Sarcasm, comedy.
How do you ban sarcasm?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you prove something was sarcastic?
Yeah, it's like, but sir, I didn't mean it that way. I really meant that your haircut is amazing. Kim
Jong-un. You're getting even more sarcastic as you go through this court case.
No,
yeah,
no, but but it's funny because I also looked something up that I was like curious about. How does sarcasm work in oppressive regimes? Because in oppressive regimes, you're not allowed to say anything. You're not allowed to, like even in Syria, for example. Humor is very important. Sarcasm is extremely important because, like my dad, for example, who actually was in the Syrian army, every time there was an electricity outage, he would be like, "Oh, God, keep this amazing government for us. Please never deprive us of this amazing government."
Locked up for that, surely.
Yes. And I was like, I found that very funny, but like people had to put it in somehow, otherwise they would go crazy. Yeah. And so sarcasm was a big part of it.
Well, let's think about the worst atrocities, the Holocaust.
Yeah.
But it's well documented how the Jewish prisoners used sarcasm
to survive as a coping mechanism.
Irony as a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
"Ooh, what's on the menu tonight? Oh, look at this amazing dish that is being served up." It was all part of coping.
Absolutely.
So I can see that.
It's like when they say you don't know whether to laugh or cry. It's really like the only way for you not to cry about something so bad is to laugh about it.
Yeah. I think I probably have many outbursts of sarcasm when I'm under pressure or when I'm in a bad situation.
Which makes everybody else laugh and you're like dying on the inside.
Exactly.
But thank you for that. We appreciate
Glad
it.
to be entertaining. So 200 UK participants and 200 Chinese participants read scenarios which were looking at whether something was either literal or sarcastic criticism, right? They had to interpret. And the speaker either had equal, higher, or lower social status than the person who was the recipient.
Okay.
And this is really interesting. Results showed that compared to just normal literal criticism, sarcasm was viewed as being more polite and less aggressive in the United Kingdom.
Interesting.
So I'd prefer you, rather than just saying my haircut's terrible, to say,
soften it
what a lovely haircut, right? That's seen like that
as
in the
a
UK.
good thing,
But sarcasm is seen as more aggressive in China. And when the speaker has higher social status, sarcasm is rated as less amusing and more aggressive in the UK. So if your boss
does that,
is sarcastic, that's seen as aggressive and not funny. But it's seen as less aggressive and more polite in China.
Wow. I think this all says about how we view authority in different countries.
Yes.
Very interesting.
So this is the impact of sarcasm. The tinge hypothesis needs to take into account cultural differences, as in so many other things that we've looked at. That the way you receive it depends on your relationship with the person who's giving it, and that's different depending on whether you're in a very paternalistic culture like China, or a more
or Syria,
or a less authoritarian place like the UK.
the West, exactly. Have you got any poems for us?
I've got a few. I found this really difficult.
Yes.
I could give us another Jonathan Swift, but maybe I'll give you something else. So in anybody who wants to look up Jonathan Swift, that is not his only sarcastic work. I have a poem where he wrote an elegy on the death of a late famous general, and this was the Duke of Marlborough. And the Duke of Marlborough had enriched himself at the expense of poor soldiers. Thousands of soldiers had died because of his mistakes. And so he writes this elegy, which is really because the Duke's finally died.
Yeah, so it's like really biting.
It's celebrating his death big time.
Yeah.
But what shall I read? How about a rational anthem?
Okay.
As opposed to a national anthem.
Rational anthem,
A rational anthem, it's there in the title. This is by a poet called Ambrose Bierce, born in 1842, died in 1913. And this is his view of the world about him, the world, the American country. It's supposed to be celebrating a national anthem.
Yeah.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of felony, of thee I sing, land where my fathers fried young witches and applied whips to the Quaker's hide and made him spring. My knavish country thee, land where the thief is free, thy laws I love. I love the thieving bills that tap the people's tills. I love thy mob, whose wills is all laws above. Let federal employees and rings rob all they please, the whole year long. Let office holders make their piles and judges take our coin. For Jesus' sake, let's all go wrong.
That is fantastic.
So this is only like the 1800s.
Wow.
But he's absolutely destroying the American dream.
Imagine
there,
if
isn't
he came here now and saw what was happening in America right now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. That is definitely biting sarcasm, but for a good reason, I think.
And I think it's like 19th century Jonathan Swift. There's so many similarities.
Yeah.
And I mean, the question there is, these sarcastic poems, both of those, are biting in their criticism of authority. Mm-hmm. So is sarcasm a bad thing in that context?
I think that's like, this would fall maybe under satire a little bit, where it's meant to correct, rather than just to criticize and hurt.
Yes.
And I like that. I think satirical pieces, especially political satire, it's really, really important. And I think this might be one way to get the idea across. Sometimes it can be a serious article, sometimes it can be a parody, sometimes it can be... But I think it's important to try and get to all kinds of people to change society.
I mean, that's satirical humour. I love it.
Yeah.
And I think, again, Britain is well known for its satirical TV programmes and magazines and, you know... Punch magazine or Private Eye, you know, they're great.
Yeah.
And I don't think they travel, so I don't think you see that in
some things you never see anywhere else. Yeah, exactly. You only have to go to London. So when I go to London, I turn on the TV. I'm like, oh, I wish we could see these things somewhere else. Yeah. I'm going to write to read to you. You're
going to write to me? No. Right? That'd be good. Send me an emoji.
I'm going to read to you a poem, and then maybe, I don't know, I think we're
pretty well done, I think.
Yeah.
I will have had enough by then.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I've enjoyed it so much too.
Yeah, that's fine.
So this one...
You Banbury cheese.
Okay, so this one is not really sarcastic, but maybe there is a bit of irony in it.
Yes.
So this one is called Not Waving But Drowning by Stevie Smith.
Stevie Smith, good old Stevie Smith.
Nobody heard him, the dead man, but still he lay moaning. I was much further out than you thought, and not waving, but drowning. Poor chap, he always loved larking, and now he's dead. It must have been too cold for him. His heart gave way, they said. Oh, no, no, no. It was too cold always. Still, the dead one lay moaning. I was much too far out all my life, and not waving, but drowning.
Yes.
This is very sad. It is funny and sad at the same time, because it's talking about how isolated we can be, and how a lot of the humor that we have, or a lot of the things, you know, this love for larking, this might be a cry for help. You know, some people who put up this kind of like ha 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 jokey all the time, really they are trying to mask their pain.
Yes.
And they are asking to be seen and heard, and like kind of and so I found it really, really
I think
painful.
I mean, we talked a little bit, haven't we, about people using humour, sarcasm, irony, whatever, as a mask. Mm-hmm. And those great comedians, so many of them off stage are miserable, depressed,
commit suicide. Yeah.
And their humour is part of their act, is part of their mask.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known people in my life where you think, I just wish you'd be serious for once.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
just
you're funny, but I'd really like to know what you really think.
Yes.
So there are times when I don't want a funny answer all the time.
Yeah.
And you get that with students, don't you, from sometimes?
Yes.
Like the class joker, what they have to offer is just their humour.
Clowning.
And that's the way they've found to survive in that sort of system that they're in.
Or maybe that's the only thing that will make them acceptable.
Yeah.
That's the other thing as well. Is like, this is the only thing I'm good at. I am funny. I make people laugh with me or at me. It doesn't really matter.
That from their youth. The only way they could be heard.
Yeah.
Because they were invisible.
Or seen, exactly.
They didn't have any identity,
Yeah.
so they started to be funny.
Yeah.
And then people noticed them and appreciated them.
And this
they
became
felt
their identity.
some sort of value.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I'm sarcastic when I come in the morning.
That is
it's
not...
because it's the only way that I can be seen or heard.
That is not true.
Well, it is, because the room's full of women. And they're all so busy talking that I'd never be heard or seen.
Yes, I do feel sorry for you, actually. It's when the other one male teacher that we have in the room is not there. I really do feel for you. So you really handle it very well with your sarcasm. But you're also lucky that all of these women do appreciate it and they can dish it back.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Because not everybody in that... Maybe they don't all listen to the podcast, hope not. I could rank everybody in the room in terms of who gets it and who doesn't.
Okay.
And that's often linked to nationality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
let's leave it at that. But I think there are some people who I'm not sarcastic with. I wouldn't even do it with, because I don't feel my relationship with them is close enough.
Yeah.
And I also don't think they quite
get it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, very good.
Let's leave it there. So do you have any quote? I like your quotes. Do you have a quote about sarcasm that we can end with?
Should we talk about something from Stoicism? We haven't talked about Stoicism.
No, we haven't.
But our hero, Epictetus.
Yes. Who's epic?
He is, and he's got epic taters.
Epic status?
No, potatoes. He's epic potatoes. So he was, the Stoic philosophy says kind of take it on the chin.
Yeah,
exactly. Take it on the chin. So his sense of humour, though, often borders on sarcasm and no nonsense, and kind of ridicules people who overthink what's happened to them and such like.
Take it too seriously. Yeah.
So for him, an insult is yet another opportunity to exercise your judgment. So if somebody's sarcastic to you, you can take that as it's, what does this mean?
An opportunity for growth.
But anyway, I think I've read this quote to you before, but I like it in the context of sarcasm. If I have to die. If it's now, well, then I die now. If later, then now I will take my lunch. Since the hour for lunch has arrived and dying, I'll tend to that later. Awesome. I think that's such a great sort of Stoic response, and it's sarcastic.
Yeah.
And then one more from Epictetus, maybe to finish, about receiving sarcasm. So, I laugh at those who think they can damage me. They do not know who I am. They do not know what I think. They cannot even touch the things which are really mine and with which I live. So as a sort of guideline, when you're on the receiving end of it, and, sometimes people say something to me about, for example, about my haircut, which is a very sensitive subject, and I might feel, hang on a minute.
Hurt.
People really don't understand who I am and how that haircut meant a lot to me. But that's okay, because they can't touch the things that are really mine.
But
and with which I live.
On a serious note, though, not everybody has that sense of resilience.
That's true.
Yeah, not about the haircut or anything, but like what Epictetus is saying here, he's really demanding that everybody feel that way, that resilience. And that is not something we can expect of people. So, it's very good to exercise it and try to build it in yourself, but you cannot accept people to have it because it's very difficult.
That's true. But this is, I think, the message, isn't it, really? It's about exercising judgment about
who you can be sarcastic with.
And see it as a communal thing. It has to be something that somebody wants to receive.
Exactly.
One more last quote then.
Go on.
Stoic one. Not from Epictetus, but from Seneca. All things are either cause for laughter or weeping. And since that is the case, it's more fitting for a man to laugh at life than to lament over it. I like that.
I like that too. As I said, like you either cry or you laugh.
Yeah.
And so you choose to laugh because
it's more fun.
Yeah, very good.
And if you can make other people laugh as you go along then that's even better.
It's a win-win. Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Very good. That was
now you're going to tear me to pieces.
That was one of the best podcasts I've ever heard. Or ever taken part in.
Well, with no sarcasm, I really enjoyed this.
I enjoyed that, and some interesting learning points for me that I can take away from that.
I'm glad.
Yes.
Me too.
Good.
Okay then. So
all right.
We will see you guys next week.
Next week for some more fun. Okay.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
We hope that you've enjoyed listening to the readings we chose for you today.
And that our musings have ignited your thoughts.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and those you think would enjoy it.
If you have any thoughts, suggestions, or any kind of feedback, please send us an email using the email in the show notes.
We'd love to hear from you with the words,
that make you.